The 1960s were about much more than hippies, free love, and rock and roll. The struggle for civil rights and an unpopular war in Southeast Asia became the flashpoints of social, political, and cultural upheaval, spearheaded by the nation's youth. For many Americans, the threat to the status quo was embodied by radical organizations like Students for a Democratic Society. The SDS grew out of the civil rights movement and gathered force with their crusade against the Vietnam War. The group was active on many campuses nationwide, including Kent State.
What they're doing is hoping that they can somehow scare us into not being ourselves.
It was a student movement that suited the purpose of the times, which was to empower young people and students at a time when we couldn't vote, completely disenfranchised, but we could be drafted.
In 1970, the voting age was 21. Yet any male 18 to 25 years old could be drafted and sent to Vietnam.
Draft had a large part to do with the anti-war movement. Everyone in high school in 1969 and 70 knew that they were either going to face the draft immediately or after some time in college if they got a 2S deferment.
Kent State University, May 4th, 1970. The tragedy that day, like so much back then, was rooted in the war in Vietnam. The trouble started 4 days earlier with President Nixon's announcement that he was widening the war into Cambodia. Nixon had been elected on a promise to end the war. The invasion of Cambodia triggered a firestorm of protests on campuses across the country. The administration expressed open contempt for the protesters. Vice President Spiro Agnew.
Overprivileged, under-disciplined, irresponsible children of the well-to-do, blasé permissivists.
And the president himself, in an off-camera remark picked up by an NBC News microphone.
You know, you see these bums, blowing up the campuses. Listen, the boys that are on the college campuses today are the luckiest people in the world.
At Kent State, the campus was in turmoil after days of protest. The National Guard was sent in. The students ordered to disperse. They refused. Some threw rocks. The Guard used tear gas. Then, without warning, using live ammunition, they opened fire. At least a dozen students were hit. 4 were killed. Sandra Scheuer, William Schrader, Jeffrey Miller, lying dead in this unforgettable photograph that made front pages across the country, and Allison Krauss, whose grief-stricken father spoke to reporters.
She resented being called a bum. She felt that war in Cambodia was wrong. Is this dissent a crime? Is this a reason for killing her?
A White House statement seemed to blame the students. This should remind us all, once again, that when dissent turns to violence, it invites tragedy. Across the country, protests grew. So did an angry backlash. In Lower Manhattan, anti-war demonstrators who had lowered an American flag to honor the dead at Kent State were attacked by pro-Nixon hard hats. Protesters converged on Washington by the thousands for a massive anti-war rally. Buses ring the White House to keep them out. Kent State was memorialized in song by Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. The tragedy was a shock to the nation. For Richard Nixon, it was a turning point. His own chief of staff later called it the beginning of his downhill slide toward Watergate. But the same week, those 4 students were cut down. 168 Americans were killed in action in Vietnam and Cambodia, and the war dragged on for another 5 years.
Lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds are getting so much resistance from behind. Every time we stop, hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. What a field day for the heat. 1,000 people in the street, singing songs and a carrying sign. Mostly say hooray for our side. It's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
When the troops reach the top of Blanket Hill, all hell breaks loose.
May 4th, 1970, 4 students were killed and 9 wounded when National Guardsmen opened fire on the campus at Kent State University. By May 5th, this photograph had been flashed from the small Ohio campus to every newspaper in the world. Later, it would win a Pulitzer Prize. To millions of people, it represented something, this moment of grief for an American co-ed, Mary Ann Vecchio, as she wept over the body of an American student, Jeffrey Miller.
The photograph may have become a symbol of the tragedy of Vietnam and the tragedy of America. In fact, Mary Ann Vecchio was not a co-ed at Kent State, not a war resistor, not symbolic of anything. Mary Ann Vecchio was a 14-year-old runaway, hitchhiking from nowhere to nowhere, who found herself that afternoon on the campus at Kent State. How come it was you kneeling over that boy?
I guess I just cared for him. I didn't really, at the time, know what death was. Except for my grandmother I seen in the funeral, but I've never seen a person get shot. And I just was scared, and after I realized what happened, I had just ran, just kept running.
Let's keep the lights out for this one, all right? If I do one, baby, 1 in 5, no one here gets out alive now. You get yours, mama, I'll get mine. Gonna make it, baby, if we try, yeah. The old get old and the young get stronger. May take a week and it may take longer. They got the guns, but we got the numbers. Gonna win, yeah, we're taking over. Come on. Yo, ballroom days, they're over, baby. Night is drawing near. Shadows of the evening crawl across the year. You walk across the floor with the flower in your hand, trying to tell me no one understands. Trading you hours for a handful of dimes. Gonna make it, baby, in our prime. Get together one more time. Get together one more time. Get together one more time. Get together. Get together one more time. 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 Get together, gotta get together, gotta get together, gotta. Come on, honey, you get along home. I'll be there in just a little while. You see, I gotta go out in this car with these people and get fucked up. Get together one more time. Get together one more time. Get together one more time. Get together.
State leave grave questions with us all. The Scranton Commission investigating campus disorders called the shootings unnecessary, unwarranted, and inexcusable. The Justice Department's summary of the FBI report concluded that the guardsmen were in no immediate danger from the students. Charges have been made that a conspiracy to fire on the students existed among some members of the National Guard. One member of the Scranton Commission, James F. Ahern, former police chief in New Haven, Connecticut, wrote nearly 2 years after the tragedy, "There should be little doubt in the public's mind that those who fired their guns at Kent State and Jackson State were and are liable to criminal prosecution. When people are killed unnecessarily, inexcusably, unreasonably, and unjustifiably, only someone with a deep cynicism concerning our system of justice could assume that they were not killed illegally. Kent State, Jackson State, Attica, Orangeburg, May Day in Washington, and similar incidents which occur daily are symptomatic of our society. Can we continue to condone illegal killings and sanction the use of force to repress dissent and still maintain ourselves as a free society? The United States Constitution guarantees the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.